What incredible grace that we have been blessed with the possibility of celebrating the glory that is always here. What incredible grace that we can be this living celebration of reality, of the light. That our only purpose in life is to glorify the light, to live this light, that our only purpose is to celebrate the glory. Wow, right? We can imagine that it's so difficult. But everything that we think is difficult are all the things that we're trying to do to belong to a world that is not reality. We're working so hard to try to belong to something that is essentially our perspective and our misperception of our own mind dwelling in shame and guilt and doubt and fear, right? We're trying to belong to a world that is being created out of the frequency of fear. And then we're wondering why we struggle so much, wondering why we don't feel like we belong. And the truth is, we are being invited in every moment to belong only to the light, to belong only to the peace of the heart, to belong only to the glory of God. Everything else is taken care of. That once we actually remember our true belonging, there's an immediate resolution in the heart. There's only one thing happening, and that is love. There is only one thing happening, and that is God. And in the true knowing of this in the heart, there can be a letting go of all of the ways that we put so much effort into trying to belong and struggling in the process. We realize that we can just let go and let grace. That whatever seems like a struggle, whatever seems like there is discordance and resistance, is just an opportunity to know more of the glory, to celebrate more of the glory, taking up residence in the heart. That what feels like discordance, what feels like struggle and hardship, isn't about trying harder to belong, to be seen, to be validated. It's about surrendering the struggle, surrendering the resistance, and recognizing the fullness of the heart that has no lack. In truth, in this moment here now, in the presence of now, there is no lack. There's nothing missing. In the simplicity of the presence of now, there is nothing missing. And when we come to realize that this sense of fullness that is the presence of now is like primo viewing. It's the primo perspective. It's everything. It's everything. And we overlook it because we're so eager to look for the next thing to do and the next way to struggle and the next effort to belong to something that is not real. When really, truly the pull of the heart is to belong only to yourself, only to the glory, only to the light. Everything is yours, nothing is mine. Everything is yours, nothing is mine. We can lay down our weapons. We are carrying these weapons of mass destruction. We're activating them constantly as we are attempting to crash into the world and the imbalances, and we're trying to belong, and in all of our trying and efforting, we are, in a way, our weapons of mass destruction is our allegiance with separation, our allegiance with that which is not real. What are we destroying? We're destroying our own peace. We're destroying our own peace, right? And all we're longing for is that depth of peace. But as we keep pushing and pushing to try to belong to a world that is really a reflection of the frequencies of our own imbalance, and instead we start to belong to this moment, we start simply, let's belong to the presence. Let's belong to the presence of now. Let's belong to now. Let's lay everything down in total devotion to now. Let us just be here now. And we recognize that there is a stop, a fullness that is here. There's no sense of lack. There's no sense of needing anything. That love is actually here, just waiting for the frequency of remembrance to be attuned with. And so love can be revealed. Love wants nothing more than to be utterly revealed in every heart. But love cannot be revealed when it is being concealed by all of our efforting. So where there is discordance in the field, essentially it's collective discordance. It's the frequency of fear, the frequency of shame and guilt and doubt. The frequency of wrong. I am wrong. Something is wrong with me. The world is wrong. That one has done something wrong to me. If we are able to rest in the simple fullness of this moment, and as the illumined principle of the light of awareness, to just illuminate every moment that a thought comes in that makes somebody or something wrong, including our own self. If we are able to illuminate all of the ways that we are constantly making an allegiance with shame and guilt and doubt and fear, and just to see it. Nothing needs to happen. There's actually nothing to do. In fact, it's the leaving it alone, the not trying to fix or change anything. It's actually just shifting the frequency from the frequency that sees something is wrong or enters a criticism or a judgment or a way of making myself wrong, making another wrong, making the world wrong, that we just see, oh, there it is, the mechanism, the habit, the weapon, that which destroys peace. There it is. And just to illuminate it, and just to, in that illumination, shine the light of love upon that innocent habit, to constantly move to that frequency, a denser frequency. If we can put all of the effort that we put into trying to belong to a world that is not reality, if we put all that effort towards illuminating the numerous times a day, like really numerous times, like in the hundreds, that we move to that mechanism, and we put all of that effort towards not trying to fix and change, not trying to justify ourselves, criticize, judge, and we put all the effort towards illuminating and allowing the light and the frequency of love to shine upon the innocence of our protective mechanism. That to project blame is innocent. To project blame upon ourselves as shame and guilt is innocent. But we can move in a way that says, well, that's just the way things are. That's just the way the world functions. It is the way the world functions, but the world is a collective consciousness of humanity that is in the frequency and imbalance that we call separation. And in our ability and blessing that we have the awake awareness to celebrate the glory, it shows that we have the possibility to deepen, to allow the blessing of our awareness, our clear vision, our knowing of what is true, the knowing of the heart, the knowing of the frequency of love, that we have the capacity to use this superpower to illuminate all of the ways that we divide and limit ourselves. And essentially what we are inviting is a freedom, and the freedom is from the mind. It's a freedom from being held captive by the mind. That when we are in the frequency of fear, we're in the frequency of the mind and the sense of the separate one that is a protective mechanism that has been learned. It's not reality. It's not just the way things are. It's the way that we've learned that things are. But the great glorious truth is that you are the one that you have been waiting for, right? We hear this wisdom. You are the one that you are waiting for. That in a way, we have this incredible divine mission. Our divine mission is to bring peace to the world. And the mind could imagine that that's an enormous project. But it's not an external project. It's not a project of activism and getting out there on the front line. It's an inside job. It's about restoring peace in the heart, dwelling, living in this peace of the heart. And so resonating at this frequency of peace and being a transmitter of this peace, this frequency of peace. Collapsing the worldview and collapsing the worldview into reality. Collapsing the worldview into reality. And this is the collapse of believing that the mind has power, giving power to the mind, letting the mind be the master, recognizing that you are the master. The heart is the master. The light is the master. And it's about aligning with the glory of the light and living in celebration of what the heart knows to be true. And so it starts here now, in the presence of now, recognizing your own presence and just being here. That the presence is an awake, aware presence. It's the presence of existence itself. Existence itself is reality, but existence itself as reality does not have any projections. It does not divide, and it is not limited. It is unlimited, boundless, infinite, eternal peace. And so we enter the presence of now, and we enter the peace of now, in the silence, in the stop, just being here. Boom. The world collapses into peace. We could call that world peace. It's not the kind of world peace that we imagined that we were responsible for. How could it be so simple? World collapses into peace. Headline news. The great, glorious good news. And now the true service begins. Being the peace. Being the peace. Being a channel, an instrument of peace. By resonating at the frequency of peace, of silence, of stillness. Recognizing that in the peace of the heart, the glory is waiting, that God is here, the light is here, that all that is divine, divinity in its absolute purity is here. Wow, right? And the mind might say, well, I don't know that. And the mind will never know that. It's about resting here and letting the frequency in the stillness, in the silence, reveal the glory into the finer frequencies of what is here. That we belong to the peace, we belong to divinity. That in truth, there's no specialness in it. All of humanity belongs to divinity. And the great glorious adventure that is in process is that humanity is being given the possibility to remember divinity. But the remembrance of divinity is not in the world. It's not in power imbalance and selfish gain. It's not in belonging to the world. It's in belonging to yourself, belonging to the peace. Seeing from the clear perspective, recognizing the delusion of desire, recognizing the imbalanced frequencies of fear, and all of the ways that we collaborate with separation and limitation, and that we have the powerful capacity within our very own being to pull back all the threads. It's like taking the most incredibly enormous inhale, suck it all back in, suck in your projected world, suck it all back in, pull it all back in to such a depthful presence that in a way you no longer exist. You no longer exist in division, right? The mind finds it terrifying. What does that mean? I don't exist. What could that possibly mean? It means that you don't exist divided from God, that you don't exist as a thing that is divided, and that the imagining that you are divided and that you are a thing is all a creation of the mind. And in truth, all it actually offers is stress and suffering and anxiety, because the great longing is in the sense I exist, I am divided. It carries the great burden of, oh, well, now I've got to be successful. Now I've got to belong. Now I've got to survive. Now I've got to get all the things that it takes. And that is just stress and suffering and constant toil, right? So we lay it all down at the feet of now in absolute devotion, only to this moment. Great glory, all I want is you. Show me, reveal yourself. All I want is love. All I want is to know the wholeness of this heart, that I am one with you, that there is only you. That's all that is longed for. Reveal the love that I am. Reveal that there is only love. Show me what I am made of. Show me the light that I belong to. Let the frequency of my remembrance, where my heart knows in this presence of being, let me rest here. Let me rest here at the divine stop sign and wait for you. Let me wait patiently for you. Let me stop asking the external to bring me freedom, love, grace. Let me stop asking what cannot give me the unlimited. Let me stop looking in the limited world for the unlimited. Let me stop imagining that I am going to find what I am looking for in the play of the world, in a play of limitation, in a play of things. Let me truly sink in and realize that I can only find wholeness in wholeness itself. And you are that wholeness. And this heart knows the frequency, and that I have the power to attune here with you, to know you, to trust that the grace of the light and the guidance and support is right here. That you're asking me to test it. You're asking me to make an allegiance with you and only you. What is it that pulls me away? What is it that pulls me back again towards the world, imagining that I will find safety and security in things and people and relationships and experiences? What is that great glory? Right? We have this capacity to ask for anything, to ask anything. And when our heart truly wants to be shown, we will be shown. But it will most likely appear as a purification. It will most likely appear as something happening in the world that gives us a sign. Oh, it gives us an almighty sign. And that almighty sign will often come as some kind of disappointment or disarray or disturbance. Oh, it's showing us love is not there. Security is not there. Safety is not there. Right? And we think, oh, why am I trying so hard and I'm not getting what I want? Why am I trying so hard and I'm giving so much and I'm not being seen? Because we're looking in the wrong places, right? When we're looking in things and experiences, we're never going to find. And the grace is that, of course, we don't find. We can't find in what doesn't actually have the capacity to deliver. The world doesn't have the capacity. It's not actually being mean. It doesn't have the capacity. It doesn't resonate at a frequency that can deliver. It cannot deliver, right? It just does not have the capacity. It doesn't hold the frequency to deliver wholeness, to deliver pure unconditional love. Only the glory has the capacity to deliver wholeness, love, freedom. True, deep, unwavering peace, simplicity, joy, delight. So when we are looking in things, we will always be disappointed. We will always feel a sense of lack until we are seeing with the eye of the eye, until we are seeing as the light, until we are seeing, and then suddenly everything that we saw as lacking and deficient, we suddenly see reality. We see everything and everyone as they are, as it is. We start seeing the love that is here. We start seeing from fullness and not from lack. That whatever we think, whatever we are thinking, and whatever we are focused upon is what we create. The mind is powerful. And it creates the appearance of what we are focused upon. When we put into words negative thoughts and ideas, when we speak about ourselves and others with negative connotation and a sense of lack and judgment, we are just perpetuating that. We're not speaking about positive affirmation, because in a way, positive affirmation comes from the mind that is in fear. It's all about, where are we creating from? Are we activating creation from the frequency of love, or are we activating the created appearance of life from the frequency of fear, right? So we're being given this constant opportunity to have illumined awareness, watching the thoughts, watching what we are talking about. What are we giving life to? What are we giving life to? Are we giving life to deficiency? Or are we giving life to fullness? Are we giving life to fear and shame and unworthiness? Or are we giving life to love and glorious light and reality? We are so powerful, but our power relies upon being docked in the heart of God. Our power relies upon being docked in the source, in the knowing of the heart of what we belong to. That once we are plugged in, that we are so powerful. But there's no one to own the power. There's no imbalance in the power. The power is a frequency of love, of harmony. It's like we plug back into the harmonic field, the unified field. And the frequency of love and the unified field is a frequency of caring, sharing, giving, that knows no lack. It's a frequency of utter abundance, enoughness of everything. There's enough love for everyone to be absolutely full in love. There's enough of everything. There's enough support, enough safety, enough security, enough goodness, enough beauty, enough freedom. We don't have to compare and divide. As soon as we do, we're in the frequency of lack. There is no scarcity in resources when the resource is the divine itself, when the resource is love itself, undivided, unconditional love. When we're actually resourced from the source of it all, the source of the source, we could say. There's so much beauty. Because in a way, the whole play of cause and effect, the whole causal field collapses into finer and finer frequencies. It's like we're used to living in these denser frequencies of guilt and shame and division and anger and greed and lust. We're used to living in these frequencies of sadness and hurt. And just managing, just trying to keep afloat the frequency. But as soon as we come to the frequency of openness, of willingness, as soon as we come to the frequency, it's like we have this capacity, like the frequency is like an infusion of light. The frequency is light resonance. And we have this then capacity to illumine like what all of that discordance is. And our consciousness starts to be resonating at the finer frequencies. And the finer the frequency that we're resonating at, the more of a field that we create in a way around us. But as we create that field around us, we start joining. We start joining in the frequency of the unified field. At a certain frequency, we could say the personal frequency explodes into the frequency of the unified field. And we realize that we're joined with everything, not on a personal level. We're joined at the frequency level. We're joined at the frequency of unified knowing. It's like a sparkle in the eye. We recognize each other because we're resonating. We're resonating at a frequency where we're joined in the field. And here the frequency just keeps refining and refining. And how it refines is by creating circumstances in the play of life to refine us, to humble us, to heal in the greatest, truest sense, the denser frequencies. Heal the frequencies of guilt and shame, the frequencies that are dense and heavy and weigh us down, imagining that we are limited. We start to see the innocence of our patterns. And the innocence is the seeing as consciousness itself. As we open to that finer unified frequency, the frequency of being, the frequency of the presence, as we start to open to that, we start to be able to use the illumined light of awareness to look upon and to see and recognize, well, the essence of everything is consciousness. So my hurt and my sadness and my guilt and my shame and my doubt and my fear, all of that has to also be consciousness. It's just dancing in these discordant patterns. It's just taken the shape of anger and fear and shame. But ultimately, it's never actually lost its essence nature. It's always has retained its essence nature. And so we start to realize, as the light, as the illumined presence, that we have this powerful capacity plugged into source, right? This light, it's source light. And within our internal functioning, we have this capacity to illuminate and shine the light of awareness upon the seeming discordant patterns and hold these patterns, hold these places in an illumined presence that silently says, I love you, I see you, I see only light, I see only myself. And when these patterns have nothing more imposed upon them, and let's say the interceptor level is this level that says, you need to heal, you need to try harder, take this course, practice harder, do more, right? This, even if it's well-intentioned, it's saying silently, yes, you're broken. Yes, you're not enough. Yes, you need to try harder. So we remove this interceptor level and we go straight to the glory, straight to the glory. No more fixing, no more changing. Just shine the light. No imposition, no agendas, just love. I see you, I love you. You are perfect as you are. I see you, I love you. There is only light. I see only light. And this little discordant pattern in the light, in the frequency, it starts to remember, starts to tremble, it starts to rumble in its internal nucleus of essence nature. It starts to rumble. Oh, I think I am starting to recognize. I'm starting to courageously open in the light of this frequency, that in the frequency of love, everything yields. I'm not the anger. I'm not the fear. I'm not the deficient one. I'm not the lacking one. I'm not the story. I am love. I am light. And that knowing is right here in the silent heart, in the deep stillness and presence. I remember. And this discordant pattern of consciousness opens and it remembers itself. It sees itself in the reflection and the felt reflection of a frequency of love that does not impose anything. The shifting happens like magic, alchemy. The precious alchemy happens in the consciousness. And as this shifting happens, the felt sense of the life of the being starts to rebalance and shift. And we start to see more and feel more of the love that we are. We could say we start to, first of all, feel things like hope. We start feeling hope. We start feeling possibility. We start feeling courage. I got this. This can happen. Wow. Wow. I start feeling like I can clamber my way out of the pit of despair. I can start to feel like I do have the capacity to illuminate the ways that I keep making myself wrong. Okay, what if just for the next hour, I'm really focused and I just love myself in every moment? There you are. There it goes. There's the pattern. Judging, criticizing, projecting blame. I see it. I see it. And I'm not making it wrong. I see it. I see how I have this default functioning program to go to lack and guilt and blame and projection. I see how it's innocent. I see how it's protection. Wow, I really have the capacity to be able to move through this. We start recognizing the mechanistic functioning of consciousness, and we give up trying to understand and learn more techniques, because we realize, wow, I am the intelligence, I am the wisdom light, and I have the absolute capacity within my own consciousness to illuminate everything that is discordant. And we start realizing, oh, this is the grace. This is all grace. This is the functioning of the wisdom. Nothing is wrong. And even when I know the glory that I am, when something difficult happens, it's not because I've done something wrong. It's not because I'm leaving myself. It's because the grace is bringing in, it's surfacing and pulling forward the patterns of the unconscious that are ready to come to the light. That actually the light that I am is the poultice. Wow, wow. The light that I am is the poultice that is calling forth. It's like pulling the unconscious field forward into the light. And as this is happening, even though I feel discomfort and discordance, and even some stress and suffering in that, I feel willing to meet it, because this is how true healing happens. That true healing happens isn't about fixing and changing and making the me better. It's about these patterns that make up the me, that are protection and mind and discordance, surrendering themselves impersonally to the light, like lemmings jumping off a cliff into the abyss and the glory, right? This is what is happening. Wow, I see it. I see how this is functioning. So I have this courage and this willingness coming online, and the frequency gets finer. The frequency gets more subtle. We could say it's like a higher frequency. We start recognizing that we're moving within this incredible flow of consciousness, of intelligence. And there are these incredible structures of intelligence, laws of nature here. So we start aligning with the laws of nature. We start recognizing that what we are made of is a unique configuration of laws of nature, that I'm not a me, I'm not a burden, I'm not a divided someone. I'm a unique configuration of laws of nature. And when I start realizing that my laws of nature are one with the laws of nature, and that there's an intelligence that's governing it all, we start realizing that there's an intelligence and a wisdom to the frequencies and flows of consciousness. And that when we give ourselves, our small self, to that flow, when we really jump into the river, that everything is just happening. And the frequency is shifting, and we are refining and purifying. And life is the integrated flow of purification. And then we start to realize that we're opening to more of the transcendent, to the unified field in these finer frequencies. And we can feel the transcendent field as who I am. I am the transcendent field. I am the freedom. I am the glory. I am the light. And the frequency gets finer, and the frequency gets finer. And as the frequency gets finer, we think, wow, great glory. Freedom is here. Love is here. Wow, this feels like the glorious freedom I have been seeking for. And as we open to this glorious transcendent freedom, the glory starts to use the life as a way, as like a way and an instrument for the whole field to be refined. It starts to use the life to clear up what we might think of as the residual personal patterns of discordance. The glory starts to use the vehicle to teach us, to guide us, to show us the mechanistic functioning, to bring insight and illumination to all areas of the life, right? It's incredible, the grace and the intelligence, and how bright it is, how full it is. And the whole resonance of life starts to be this flow of grace, where we're being given the possibility to see how it works. And we're not learning anything in the mind. We're actually the resonant flow of the functioning of the intelligence of consciousness, that what we are is an intelligent process, that life is an intelligence process, and we are one with life. We are life itself. And the frequency refines, and the frequency refines. And as the frequency refines, we start to, as we are realizing, we open and join in the illumined field, the unified field. And our presence in the illumined field starts to be more and more resonant, let's say. We start to realize not just, oh, little old me joining with the unified field and then forgetting again, oh, little old me being able to tune into, you know, the frequency field of the infinite. We start to realize, oh, I'm always attuned with the frequency field of the infinite. And then we start realizing, oh, I'm ever present here in the field of light. Oh, I'm ever present here in this field of light. And this field of light is intelligent, and it's guiding, it's supporting and guiding. And everything that needs to be known is here. And all that is required of little old me is to rest attuned in the frequency, in the presence of being. Because when I am attuned, I'm being fueled and resourced by the light. I'm being guided in the light, by the light. And the one that feels to be a point, I know that I look like a point, and I feel the sense of the unique flowering of this life. And I know that I have a name on the earth realm, and I know that I function in this way, and I seem to be a person. But I know in my deep core essence that that's not actually what I am, that I'm not limited to that I am actually unlimited, unified consciousness. And in this knowing of being the unified field of consciousness, I can also feel here that I belong to the glory, that in a way pure consciousness is the source of all of life, and yet I can feel here in the frequencies of pure consciousness that pure consciousness too has a source in God, in the light, that prior to consciousness, prior to the causal field, is the light and the wholeness of divinity. I can feel that I belong to that, and I function in the human realm, in the earth realm, as an instrument of that. And yet I can feel I am absolutely one, and in a way independent of this play of life, as an eternal being of light. I can feel the frequency of that. And in the felt sense of the frequency of that, I can feel the infinite unfolding of this field of possibility. I can feel the wild aliveness of the pure potentiality. And I can feel how I am the power to create anything and everything in this human realm, not as someone, but as a frequency of divine belonging. That what I create is what the divine wants. I have the capacity to be an instrument, a vehicle of the divine, and create in absolute alignment with the divine, what the divine wants and needs on the human realm at this time. And all it requires is to be a frequency of light, of love, to be a transmitter, and to rest here in the knowing of the heart. And I can see here that if I go to the mind and the denser frequencies, that I'm creating with the same power. I'm creating as consciousness from the discordance. I can see that I create from either discordance and the frequency of fear and guilt and shame, or I create from the fine frequency of the heart's knowing of love and bliss and peace. Right? We start to open to the whole intelligent field of consciousness. It is what we are. And as a flow of intelligence, we start to feel that what we are in truth is a flow of devotion, a flow of surrender. And the flow of devotion is the intelligent flow of consciousness surrendering into itself in absolute devotion to itself. And the devotion to itself is this absolute commitment. I will never leave you. I can never leave you. How could I ever leave you? I could never leave you. I could never leave you. There's only one here. How could I leave you? How could we ever be divided? How could love ever leave? How could the light ever leave? And as we start to really feel this frequency of devotion, as the light surrenders into itself, we realize that the integrity of wholeness is an integral flow of devotion and surrender. It's a flow of humility. It's a flow that never takes shape, never becomes someone, never becomes something, never divides, never needs anything or desires anything for itself, because it knows its wholeness is absolute dependent upon the integrity of devotion and surrender, right? So beautiful, right? Just to feel the frequency where it can be received. Every being can receive this frequency where you are, right? And the greater the capacity, the greater the attunement. And the glory is that as you receive it, that the frequency of receiving and attunement is the nectarine bliss, which is the elixir of deepening, right? It's nourishment. It's true nourishment. It's the reschooling on the level of soul. It's reschooling in the frequency of love that happens at the level of soul, at the level of light. And we come to realize here at the level of soul that even soul is not a divided individual soul, that soul itself surrenders itself into the light, into universality. This is where the causal field and the mind and the body, the sense of the denser frequencies of the mental, the physical, the emotional. And so the mind and the causal collapse into the frequency field of pure consciousness, of being. And so the life is being orchestrated, not from the causal field of cause and effect, not that A causes B causes C. We stop living in this frequency of like cause and effect, like the domino effect. We start living at the frequency of the cause of it all, which is love, which is light, right? We start living where there is no cause, because there's nothing to cause anything else. There's only love. There's only one. Glorious wholeness, glorious, great glorious light of all that is. And here we realize in the heart of all that is that all that this life is about glorification, about celebration, about resonating at the frequency of remembrance. And that even if we move into patterns of discordance, we have the power to illuminate and meet through the nervous system, through the human nervous system, which is consciousness. We have this power and capacity to meet the felt sense, the sensation, the frequencies of discordance at the level that feels personal. But the level that feels personal, the finer frequency that we're resonating at, we're affecting the collective through our refinement, through our transmutation. We're affecting the collective. So even if it seems like we're still refining threads of discordance that feel like they segue between the sense of, is that personal? Is that collective? It doesn't matter anymore, right? It doesn't matter. The work is the work. The service is the service, right? We're here. We're all being, life is being orchestrated, and we're functioning as a service vehicle of the light. That's what life is. And that's the glory of this life, is that we're refining and refining our capacity for resonating at the frequency, transmuting at the frequency, yielding at the frequency, true healing happening at the frequency, purification, refinement happening at the frequency and then of the frequency. Everything starts to rebalance. And the knowing of the one just gets deeper and finer. The resonance gets finer, subtler, subtler, subtler. And as the frequency gets finer, according to our capacity and how we are being used, we are given the capacity of seeing, right? The capacity of true seeing, clear vision. But we will be given seeing and clear vision in exactly the ways that we need to. We won't be given all exactly the same capacities. We'll be given the capacities that are the most beneficial to move through our form in this moment. Every vehicle of service is equal in the unified field. There's no greater being. There's one wholeness, and it's working together as a harmonic field, serving the whole, right? Uplifting the whole. And we could say uplifting the whole of humanity, uplifting the frequency of the whole of the human field of collective consciousness to remember the frequency of divine. Now, on the level of shame and guilt and unworthiness, we might say, who am I to imagine that I'm uplifting humanity? Like, what arrogance would I have to imagine? But actually, that's a false humility. It's a false humility that comes with the frequency of shame, right? It's a false humility. And we're here to give up the false humility of unworthiness and lack. We're here to even give up the all of the frequencies of lack, all of the frequencies of division, of limitation, and actually realize the glory of the light that we are. And actually, that true humility doesn't belong to anyone. It's a field, it's a unified field and a frequency. It's the frequency of God. It's the frequency of love. It's the frequency of the Siddha field. And how we tap into that is the frequency of the bodhisattva field. It's that frequency of humility, the frequency that realizes that the upliftment of the whole is dependent upon us living in surrender, in devotion. And living in surrender and devotion isn't living in a quality of surrender and devotion that is rising out of the frequency of fear. It's a surrender and devotion that's rising out of the frequency of love. Because the surrender and devotion that rises out of the frequency of love is the frequency of the unified field in devotion to itself, in devotion to itself, in devotion to itself, loving itself, giving to itself, serving itself, right? In whatever way, in whatever way. And we don't need to be in a rush to serve, because to start with our service is transmuting the field just through the living of life. To start with our service is the transmutation of the field that feels like personal, feels like refinement happening. That our service to start with is to, in a way, complete the sense of the assignment that feels personal, to upgrade and recalibrate the frequencies of consciousness that we're living at in order for the finer and subtler refinements to happen. Because here we recognize that guidance is here, that support is here, the light is here, the glory is here, the field of Siddha light is here. And we are one with that. And we just keep inviting this light to take up residence and resonance in the heart. And we attune with the heart's knowing, the frequency of the heart's knowing. And where we attune with the frequency of the heart's knowing, we join in the unified field. And then in the living of life, whatever happens, we have this sincere commitment to not divide. The sincere commitment to not divide on the level of the human life being lived is just to notice where I feel stress, discordance, where I feel judgment, opinion, blame, comparison, where I feel any of those frequencies, just the absolute willingness to see it. There it is. There it is. There's the making wrong. There's the the frequency of lack. There's the shame. Great glory, let me see what I'm ready to see. Great glory, show me. I'm willing to feel the discomfort and the purification. I'm willing to be humbled in order for a greater capacity of true healing, forgiveness, to bring more courage and recognition of what this life is. That I recognize that this is one field of grace, that nothing wrong is ever happening, nothing bad can ever happen. Whatever it looks like on the surface of life, I remember that peace is right here in my belonging to you, in recognizing the source of it all, the source of all of life, recognizing that there's only light, only love, and that there's only ever one thing happening, whatever it looks like on the screen of life. That if I can attune to this frequency, then I have the power and capacity to pull back all of the projections of discordance and to do your work, to be your instrument, to serve you through the transmutation and clearing of everything that is ready to be seen. That this is not my life to be made into a successful life for me. That the greatest grace to all of my companions, friends, family, and ancestral lines is to live this truth fully right now. That the greatest service to all beings is to live this truth right now. That the greatest service to the whole of humanity and to the light itself is to live this truth. That I recognize that the purpose of this life is to be your instrument, to be the light. And that peace, seeming world peace, seeming salvation, is right here in my very own heart of light. In the knowing of you, in the knowing of you, and the celebration of what is, in the glorious celebration of what is, that we join together in this celebration, where we can feel this frequency, and just the holy yes of the heart's knowing that just says yes, 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 yes. And even noticing the places that resist is a holy, graced illumination. I see the places that resist. I see the places that are in fear. I see the places that wonder, what will my life be like if I were to really say yes all the way through? I see those places and I hold them in the light, just right here now, nothing to push, nothing to force. That I hand over control. That every move is yours. I am just a player on the game board of life. Every move is yours, great glory. Every move is yours. And the more that I'm resonating at the frequency of knowing, you have a greater capacity of the infinite field of possibility to select the happenings of life from. That if I'm resonating at fear, that it limits what you can choose to bring in. That when I'm resonating at the frequency of love, that there's so much more scope and possibility, even beyond the wildest imaginings of what you can bring in. And let it all be in service of the whole. Let it all be for you and only you. Everything is yours. Nothing is mine.